There was a lot to unpack here, so we're going to welcome back Dr. Susy Hota, Infectious Diseases Specialist with University Health Network. Dr. Hota, thank you so much for sticking around.
My pleasure.
I want to get back to the province's announcements. We played a clip earlier from Dr. Kieran Moore at the end of that news conference that Sid had alluded to, saying it was sort of the bare minimum plan. When it comes to, it's not mandated. Vaccinations are not mandated for those in healthcare or in education, but it's encouraged. And if you don't have them, you have to do X, Y, and Z. What is your take on these settings and what is needed?
I mean, I think it really should be mandatory in certain settings, healthcare, for example, educational settings. It makes sense. The reason being, you've got a lot of vulnerable people who may not be all that well protected in the case of schools or even in hospitals or long-term care, and you're there to care for them. So I think philosophically, it makes a lot of sense. Just from a safety perspective, it makes a lot of sense to mandate it. This change, this policy that's been released, it's a step in the right direction. But I was hoping that we'd see something a little bit firmer come out, and perhaps that's something that we can work towards.
When we look at the province's numbers for new infections, it was under that 500 mark. First time it's been that way for at least a week, just over 300 here. And we heard Dr. Kieran Moore say it's going to be a difficult fall and winter. That is not, no one wants to hear that, kind of dark and gloomy. What do you think the next few months are going to look like, especially with some people heading back to school, to work? Can you anticipate what the trend may be?
It's so hard to predict what it's going to look like. We have high hopes that, with people getting vaccinated and more, we can do better going forward and getting fully vaccinated, that for the most part, if infections occur, they're going to be mild and they'll be more of a nuisance, but a disruptive nuisance rather than, leading to real harm. But we don't entirely know what it's going to look like with current vaccination rates. So talking a little bit about what's happening in the healthcare sector and hospitals, through the summer, hospitals have been really busy. And a lot of that was just pure volume coming in and regular care that we provide and not even the catch up that needs to happen because of so many deferred procedures and surgeries through the pandemic. So I think hospitals are already a little bit nervous because if we end up having, even just a small additional number of people with COVID-19 coming in, plus other respiratory viruses and seasonal things that we deal with, it can really strain the system. And then the other major consideration is the school reopening and universities and educational institutes, which we absolutely have to get right this time. And, I think that it's especially important because we've got all these young children who are not vaccinated yet. And so there are a lot of things that we've got to juggle. And unfortunately, with the convergence of these, it could be a stressful time for a lot of people through the fall.
Dr. Hota, with back to school, there's a lot of the commentary, at least earlier on in the pandemic. Okay, if my child is younger, if they get it, they get it. They're going to get over it. Mild symptoms, no big deal. Are we seeing a shift in that trend? We've seen some more hospitalizations in the U.S. for the younger population. Do you anticipate that to happen here, as mentioned, for those who are under 12 years old or not born before 2000 or born after 2009, rather, who can't get the shot? Do you think we're going to see hospitalizations in this population?
Well, I think that we should expect to see some hospitalizations. I'm really hoping that we can do a good job of putting a protective layer around the children who can't be vaccinated so that we don't start to see these kinds of incidents where, kids are getting really sick. And unfortunately, kids have died in some countries. It's really a numbers game. When you allow the virus to go rampant through a population, even though the risk of getting really sick as a kid is low, you're going to start to see some of those events occur. So, it's all in our hands how much we want to do to try and prevent that from happening. It's definitely concerning seeing what's happening in some of the southern states and some other parts of the world. And, to me, that's going to be a big trigger. We have to make decisions based upon what's actually happening with children this time around, because that's our biggest susceptible group.
Lastly, for you, Dr. Hota, I don't want this to be all doom and gloom because there are some positive notes here. We are doing well with vaccination rates. If there's a message you want to leave with our viewers here that provides some sense of hope in what we're doing right now, what would you like to say?
I'd like to say we've really been doing a great job, and I think we can continue with that. I know there's still some people, estimates of 5 to 10% of people who are still sitting on the fence and not really sure about it. Talk to others. come forward, talk to doctors, talk to people you trust about it, and make that decision, because every additional percentage we can get of people vaccinated will help all of us get back to something more normal.
Okay, Dr. Susy Hota, we appreciate you taking the time and doing double duty for us here on Breakfast Television. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, some great information there. If you missed any of it, we'll make sure we post that on our website. Right now, it is 7:11. We say hello to everyone here at Breakfast Television, all to our viewers. And good morning, Donovan Bennett. Welcome.